Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we have to talk about the 2024 Ram 2500 and 3500. Before we get into this video though, as always, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. And if you want to see more content just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post videos every single day. With that being said, let's get right into it. If you've been following the channel for a while, then you know that the 2023 Ram 2500 and 3500 aren't really receiving any major changes. Yes, we get a new digital gauge cluster, new trailer tow mirrors, and a new package for the 2500, the Rebel HD, but it's ultimately the same truck that we've seen since the 2019 model year. And so Ram is gearing up to completely overhaul the truck, and it's looking like 2024 is going to be the year. Now, there is a chance that things might get pushed back to 2025 for the model year, but as of right now, it looks like 2024 is going to be the year. And there's a number of reasons why Ram is going to release these changes. First off, they want to stay competitive with Ford and General Motors. And well, if you've been following the news, then you know that Ford is releasing a new Super Duty for the 2023 model year that has some pretty crazy figures, including a new high output Power Stroke that produces 500 horsepower and 1,200 pound-feet of torque. And it can tow like 40,000 pounds if it's equipped as like a single cab dually two-wheel drive with like no options. But anyways, still crazy headline figures. And then you have General Motors, which is releasing heavily revised versions of the GMC Sierra and the Chevy Silverado HDs for the 2024 model year. And so there's a lot of reasons for people to not purchase a Ram in 2023 and 2024. And Ram knows this, and so they know that they have to make some major changes to their truck to make it stay competitive with everyone else in the environment. And then on top of that, owners of the trucks want some major changes, and Ram is listening, and so they're finally going to implement them. Now, the first major change is going to be to the powertrains associated with the Ram 2500 and 3500. So it looks like the 6.4 Hemi is here to stay for quite some time, and Ram doesn't have any reason to get rid of it because emissions regulations are not nearly as strict on heavy-duty trucks as they are on light-duty trucks, and so they can still have a big naturally aspirated V8 for years to come. However, we have the new Hurricane inline 6 that is going to be used throughout the Stellantis umbrella lineup, and it looks like it's going to make its way into the heavy-duty trucks, at least into the 2500, as an option that you can get over the 6.4 Hemi, or rather instead of the 6.4 Hemi. So it's looking like the 6.4 Hemi is going to stay as the base powertrain, and then the new Hurricane inline 6 is going to be a powertrain option slightly above the 6.4 Hemi. And in terms of power figures, it's basically just going to barely beat out the 6.4 Hemi. So it's going to have mid 400s for the horsepower most likely, and then somewhere around 500 pound-feet of torque. It's going to be paired to an 8-speed automatic transmission like the 6.4 Hemi, and so it's just supposed to be a slightly more powerful and potentially more economical engine to go for instead of the 6.4 Hemi. But we'll see if the economical side of things actually holds up because, well, it's a twin-turbo engine, and whenever you tow with a twin-turbo engine, it just goes through fuel like crazy. Now, some other changes are going to come to the diesel powertrains. So for the low output Cummins, it looks like they're going to bump up the power figures slightly. They're not going to do anything insane, but power figures are going to jump up to about 400 horsepower, and then the torque is going to jump up to about 900 pound-feet. And this seems pretty reasonable because if you look at Ford, for example, their Power Stroke in base format now produces 475 horsepower and then 1,050 pound-feet of torque. And then you look at the GM trucks, and their Duramax is now producing just under 500 horsepower. It's like 470 horsepower, and then almost 1,000 pound-feet of torque, 975 pound-feet of torque. And so for Ram to stay competitive, they do need to boost up that base engine a little bit. And then the other big news is the base engine is going to get a new transmission. Ram knows that a lot of people want something that just feels a little bit more modern, especially when Ram owners go and test drive a Silverado or a Ford Super Duty and they go, wow, 10-speed automatic transmissions are actually awesome when it comes to heavy-duty trucks because it just makes it a lot more daily drivable, and it actually can help out with towing quite a bit. And yes, there are some benefits to a 6-speed automatic with towing. I understand that with how the gearing is and everything, but you know, generally more gears is usually better. It's not always, but it's usually better. And so We're not exactly sure exactly how many gears this new transmission is going to have, but it sounds like it's going to have at least 8 and potentially 10, just like what General Motors and Ford has. It's not going to be anything co-developed with them. There has been some rumors going around that they might actually put an Allison in the new Ram heavy-duty trucks. If you guys don't know, the General Motors trucks don't actually use a true Allison transmission. It's just Allison branded because they're allowed to use the name. And so Ram could, theoretically go and put together a deal with them and then throw that together with the Cummins. And they would be very smart to do that, because that would literally just because of the two names, Cummins and Allison, I mean, people would buy that truck like crazy. It would be a pretty interesting thing. But moving on from that to the high output Cummins, this is going to be heavily revised, and this is because Ram always wants to beat Ford when it comes to torque. General Motors has pretty much completely backed out of the torque wars, whereas Ram and Ford are still just like battling it out. And so the new high output version is going to have well over 1,200 pound-feet of torque. Now, it can definitely handle that by itself, but a lot of automakers are obviously going towards the hybrid side of things, and Stellantis is especially starting to really deep dive into hybrids. And so there's a chance that it'll get that over 1,200 pound-feet of torque rating because it is going to be a hybrid diesel rather than just a standalone diesel. And then it'll also get an upgraded transmission to obviously be able to handle the extra power. But then on top of that, something that's just a little bit more modern, so it makes the drivability a little bit better. Some other major changes that are coming for the Ram HD trucks are going to be new cabs, or should I say cabs. So Ram is finally going to give the HD trucks the new style of crew cab that's in the Ram 1500, which is great news because everyone's been asking for this. But there is a pretty high chance that Ram's going to be getting rid of the Mega Cab. Now, obviously, the Mega Cab is super iconic in name, and it would be really difficult for Ram to get rid of it because a lot of people would be very frustrated. But the new style of crew cab is so big that you might as well call it a Mega Cab, and this would actually help streamline production because they wouldn't be building 3 different cab styles, because right now they can build the single cab, and then you've got the crew cab, and then you got the Mega Cab, whereas if it was just single cab and crew cab, then yeah, it would actually help out quite a bit. And so just understand, changes are coming for the cab, and we might no longer get a Mega Cab. Now, another big thing is with the 2500, they are really beefing up the multi-link setup in the rear, because a lot of people have been complaining about the payload capacity with 2500 series trucks. I mean, if you have a 2500 with a Cummins, it's like 2,000 something pounds of payload. And if you do a Mega Cab, I mean, it's sometimes less than 2,000 pounds of payload for an HD truck. And Ram listens, and so it sounds like they're going to do a lot with the rear suspension to make it so that it can just handle a lot more, and so that payload capacity will go up. And on top of that, they are going to be doing a lot to actually just make the overall truck lighter to also help with increasing the payload. And then moving over to the 3500, still going to utilize leaf springs in the rear, and they're going to kind of beef things up a little bit more because they plan on heavily increasing the towing capacity with the 3500, especially in dually format. And so they need to revise the suspension and the springs and everything so that it can handle that extra weight. So there are going to be quite a lot of changes when it comes to the suspension of the truck, but again, still going to have leaf springs. That's pretty much going to sum things up for our video talking about the new Ram 2500 and 3500. And I do want to end this video with saying that you probably shouldn't hold your breath for this truck. Just understand that with everything that's happening in the economy and in the world in general, there are a lot of delays with auto manufacturing. And so yeah, there's a pretty big chance that this truck could get delayed a year, potentially 2 years, or even more. And then on top of that, right, companies always have goals for new vehicles, but some of those goals are obviously attainable and some of those goals are not as attainable. Now, I think that overall a lot of this can be attained by Ram, but until we have a finished product, we'll just have to wait and see exactly what happens. But even if they only get like half of that stuff, the truck would still be improved by a massive amount, and it would make Ram owners really happy. But if they get all of that stuff checked off, then that would make Ram owners really happy. And with that being said, I will see all of you in that next video.